Hello, and welcome to our webinar series on the 8 professional competencies for preventing drug misuse among college students. I'm Rich Lucy, Senior Prevention Program Manager in the Drug Enforcement Administration's Community Outreach and Prevention Support Section. DEA is pleased to be part of this project to highlight the skills necessary for coordinating comprehensive campus efforts to prevent drug use. While we have made significant progress with these issues over recent decades, much more remains to be done. The foundation for this webinar series is a publication prepared by Dr. David Anderson, Professor Emeritus of Education and Human Development at George Mason University. The document was produced with funding from the Mid-America Prevention Technology Transfer Center, which is funded by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. DEA is pleased to continue its partnership and collaboration with SAMHSA and its Center for Substance Abuse Prevention. Over the course of these 8 webinars, we take a deeper dive into each of the core competencies that are designed to promote enhanced professional skills and ultimately affect college students' decisions surrounding drugs and alcohol. This 7th episode focuses on leadership. This webinar covers, among other things, the importance of clearly defined roles and responsibilities, supervision, and programmatic monitoring with an aim of continuous improvement, as well as vital aspects around ethics, cultural humility, and professionalism. We know that strong leadership is vital to effective prevention. We also know that leadership can come in many forms: the college or university president, faculty members, students and student groups, the campus coalition, a community coalition or its director, local officials, and many more. But it is the knowledge and skill of the prevention coordinator that is widely recognized as the single most important contributor to the success of a campus effort. That's why it is so important for those individuals and other key personnel to be properly trained to lead the campus efforts, to be grounded in sound practices and prevention science, and to know which prevention strategies work, and perhaps more important, which don't work. It's our hope you and your campus benefit from the information being shared in this webinar. We think you'll find many ways to put the insights and contents to good use. With that, it's my pleasure to turn over today's episode to our host, Dr. David Anderson.
Thanks, Rich, for that kind introduction, and thanks to you and your colleagues at the Drug Enforcement Administration for sponsoring this series, and more broadly, thank you for all of your organization's leadership with drug misuse prevention across our country. You know, this webinar series that you're, again, graciously hosting for us helps to bring to life the professional competencies for substance misuse prevention on our college campuses. This is based on the recent publication, The Guide to the 8 Professional Competencies for Higher Education Substance Misuse Prevention, available at www.preventioncompetencies.org and also on your website. This resource was a years-long project that involved the expertise and the insights and the experience of 5 experts from around the country. They joined with me and we built this document, again, focusing on 8 professional competencies. Today, we're dealing with leadership, the 7th of the 8 professional competencies that we deemed important. And to bring that to life, we have Dr. Karen Moses, who's the director of the Wellness Center at Arizona State University, and Joan Masters, who's the project director of Missouri's Partners in Prevention. So I welcome both of you, Karen and Joan. Glad to have you here today.
Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's start with Joan. A little bit about your background. Just tell our viewing audience a little bit about yourself, particularly as it relates to this topic area of leadership.
Sure. So again, I'm Joan Masters. I'm the project director of Missouri Partners in Prevention, which is a coalition of 24 colleges and universities in Missouri. And the organizations that we work with in Missouri Partners in Prevention, the colleges and universities, all have demonstrated leadership related to substance misuse prevention, suicide prevention, and violence prevention on their campuses. So it's our responsibility as the statewide coalition to provide both the prevention leaders, but also the administrative leadership on all of those campuses with the tools that they need to kind of act boldly, as our competencies ask us to do, to move forward to advance evidence-based prevention in the work that we do, and to make change and create those healthier, safer, the health promoting environment that we talk about in the competencies.
Very good. Thank you. Karen.
Yeah, thank you. Again, my name is Karen Moses. I have directed the work being done in wellness and health promotion at ASU for over 30 years with oversight of the prevention programs here. Through this role, I've had the opportunity to enhance my own leadership skills and to grow as a leader in the prevention space. I've served in leadership as director of ASU Wellness, and then also as a colleague who's contributing to well-being strategies across the university, and then as a principal investigator of many multi-departmental grants. So we bring together people to do prevention work, and that contributes as well an example of where we can serve as leaders in the prevention space. And then in the role of also served in the role of coalition, work group, committee chair, contributor, and in elected and appointed positions for national, regional, and state professional associations and work groups. So I say all that as a sort of, a milieu of different opportunities for leadership that have been in my sphere of influence since beginning my work at ASU many, many years ago.
Yeah, that's each of you in different ways have demonstrated that leadership, and that's why you're both perfect for this session today. Yeah, when we built this, when we built this resource, the guide, we figured out how to organize it, and we did this around the model of a health enhancing environment. Joan, you've already mentioned that. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but we highlighted leadership as one of the 8. So Karen, I'm going to ask you this first question, and then Joan also to respond. Why did we put leadership in there? That doesn't sound traditional to what we've been doing in drug and alcohol misuse prevention on our college campuses. We've been doing our programs and our planning and our evaluation and so forth. But why is leadership one of the 8? So Karen, please.
Yeah, so the way I see it, as prevention professionals, we lead from a lot of different perspectives and roles. So all of the roles that you just mentioned that are part of the competencies are a part of our role, but then we end up serving as leads for evaluation, for example, leads for assessment, leads in all of these different areas, whether we're the leader, the assigned leader or not. So we may be responsible for developing the program vision, ensuring the team's being innovative while also using evidence-informed methods. We may be the chair or co-chair, the lead of the peer volunteers or employees. We may lead people who report to us and those who don't report to us. And what I mean by that is we demonstrate leadership in all of these different settings, whether cross-disciplinary, cross-cultural, or whether it's just a bunch of us prevention people getting together. In all of these types of leadership situations, we strive to engage people as champions, allies, those that are affected through the prevention work that we're doing. We engage experts across campuses and disciplines who can design together successful prevention strategies. And so as a leader in this space, we should understand the prevention issues that are relevant to our students and be able to articulate how substance abuse and misuse intersects with other interests and concerns about student well-being. You heard Joan talking about partners in prevention and how they really are working on not just substance misuse, but also on prevention in the areas of violence and in other areas. It's really important that we see how prevention can connect all of these different areas that are relevant to our students. We should also be prepared to tweak a program, pivot, shift, enhance based on program evaluation that's ongoing, that really is conducted as a way to improve our work, to improve our practice. A strong leader will also provide training opportunities and mentorship to their team, whether their team is a group of people they supervise, whether their team is a work group, whether their team is a group of peer educators or a student organization. We want our prevention partners to be able to be fully engaged in assessment, planning, implementation, and evaluation, and other aspects of the work. And so making sure that they have the tools, the skills, the knowledge in order to be able to do that is a part of a leader's role. The knowledge and skills that leaders tap into will contribute to building a health-enhancing environment, which we've talked about, that supports student well-being and reduce risks within the student experience.
Yeah, there's so much there to unpack. I mean, as you're talking about the importance of this for at least the prevention person as a leader, you know, you talked about working with those that they, if you will, they supervise, as well as those that they don't. You talked about, in a sense, the partners, which implies like nudging them. You talked about sharing expertise. You talk about, helping to shape the initiative and steer it. So there's so many different skills. And then you highlighted the two of the words that are central throughout all of the 8 competencies, and then the sub-competencies within there, knowledge and skills. I mean, for each of these competencies, and this one has 10, which we'll get to, each of those has an application. So there's 10 different applications within leadership, and feeding that is knowledge and skills.
Sorry.
That's fine. So Joan,
I mean, you can't be in here right now.
Joan, can we have you answer the same question?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I want to highlight, Karen said so many really important things, is that I think we have a different responsibility in prevention that a lot of folks that are in other roles on campus don't have, which is the responsibility to help or to hold colleagues accountable that we don't supervise. I think that is what's so tough about coalition building. And David, you just highlighted that, but not even just getting them to work together, but getting them to do things that promote health and safety that might go against traditions, and really hard to move things in the work that we do. And so I think about a lot of this in terms of like transformational leadership as opposed to transactional leadership. A lot of I think our colleagues sometimes consider themselves to be educators and programmers, which we certainly are, but that's a lot of transaction planning, getting stuff done, having meetings, telling people what to do. But really what we want to do is we want to transform the environment. The environment didn't get transformed into an unhealthy environment by some very simple things. These issues are incredibly complex. As Karen talked about, the intersectionality of all these issues are so complex. So we have to have complex intersectional solutions to address them. And that really only comes from either our leadership as prevention professionals or us imploring our leaders and helping them understand what we're doing to work along with us to get everyone to work together, kind of with that collective impact, all shooting in the same direction with the same goal. Otherwise, a lot of the other competencies, they don't really get actualized if we don't consider ourselves leaders, if we don't consider ourselves prevention scientists.
that is very interesting. And again, a couple of points out of that. You talk. This is what we want, is the health enhancing environment, and how long it took to not be that way. So you're talking about being more intentional to move it to a healthier place, and the complexity there. And then you talked about the intersectionality of our work. And then if we do all these other things and we're not being a leader, where does that leave things? I mean, I think that was the end point of yours. We do that. It's like, we've got to articulate, we've got to help position ourselves, we've got to communicate, which is another one of our areas. So let's shift right into the leadership. And Joan, I'll do this with you. Here are our 10 elements, our sub-competencies. How does this speak to you? What jumps out as the best or the most important? Or, if you could only do one or two here, what would your advice be? Or if you want to accept my question, or
Right.
maybe you won't. I know they're all important. I get that.
Right. I tend to pick a theme, because obviously these are all grouped under the theme, but the one that I think stands out to me the most is acting boldly.
Wow.
And what that says to me is similar to what I just shared, is thinking about ourselves as true transformational leaders at the campus, because what we're doing is changing the environment in which students are making decisions, as well as helping to change the decisions that students are making about their health. And that takes a lot of guts, gumption, feeling empowered in the work that we do. And I think that's the reason why the words acting boldly, not only just acting, but acting boldly was picked. But I also never can usually pick just one. So I think that it's important to also highlight that there are two competencies: articulating prevention issues and grounding efforts, and then also the competency related to mentoring. I think it's really important for us to find non-traditional prevention partners, especially in the academic side of the house, whether it be faculty or students that we bring forward in our work, that we champion and we mentor, and we make sure that they're aware of the work that we're doing and they're helping us to move forward with our goals. I think leadership doesn't mean our leadership alone or our turf. It means us emboldening leadership in others to help us move our priorities forward.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. And of course, the grounding efforts speaks right to one of the other 8 core competencies of prevention science, and articulation speaks right to the communication and advocacy competency area. Karen, some thoughts on your there we go.
Yeah, I would also like to just add about communicating vision. And I think that in acting boldly, that part of what we carry with us is a vision for a healthier experience for students, a safer experience for students, and bringing along with us the data that helps to be able to really talk about and convince potential partners, what is it that, or administrators, what is it that we really need to be working towards, and being able to really talk about that, and in a way that is convincing, in a way that is able to get people on board, and from any level, from students, from faculty and staff you might be working with, to administrators, parents, community members. I just think that we become, as prevention professionals, we become the voice of prevention. And so really honing that voice and those opportunities to speak up about prevention. And I really want to underscore what Joan was saying about, being able to articulate what effective prevention is, being a prevention scientists, not coming at this as, just trying things out or, whatever, we're going to try this, we're going to do that, but really knowing what the science of prevention is and being able to articulate and lead with that in your toolbox is really important.
Yeah. Can I go back to, if I may, Karen, to your comment about vision? And I know, you were the lead on the strategic planning webinar. How does vision, how do you do that? I mean, how do you help people I know it's a tall order, but how do you help those on your campus, whether it's part of your team or your other allies, your other partners, or the campus other leadership? How do you help a shared vision or create a vision that, I mean,
Yeah,
it's not as simple as a 30-second answer or 5-minute answer, but
no, it's not, is it? I think it really has a lot to do with building those relationships up and down and across, right? Being able to really communicate. And so that's communicating the vision. And then I want to take a step back and say that really creating that vision has to do with knowing data, knowing your students, having conversations, understanding what works and what isn't likely to work, knowing how much money you have to spend and what your resource allocations are, really sort of encompassing all that knowledge, and also knowing like what's coming up. So, for example, one of the things that I look at is, what does the Arizona data say about our 8th graders, our 10th graders, our 12th graders, right? Because those are the students that are primarily going to fill our enrollment slots at ASU. So I need to know what's coming in to ASU, who's coming into ASU, and what kinds of concerns and issues they'll bring with them. So getting
critical.
The data not only about our students, but about our pre-matriculating students, right? And then being able to talk about that. And I would like to just ask Joan as well, because she works with 24 schools, how those trainings, how those opportunities are used to, to really become leaders and be able to convince others that this vision that we have is worthy of us pursuing it.
Yeah, what came to mind for me was, especially when we look at like the first part of the first competency in this area, and thinking about like other leadership theories, our vision of our campus. So all of our 24 campuses have some type of mission or vision. Like we have one campus that's highly tied to its religious values and uses the religious values of a Jesuit education sort of in everything that moves forward. So it makes a lot of sense for that campus then to tie their strategic plan and the work that they do to those values, which are informing so many other parts of their institution. But there's also the ability to, tie into a student affairs vision or mission. And so I think we miss the boat when we don't talk with our partners. We don't build that capacity with them, like you said, up, down, and across, to articulate how our vision and their vision are the same, and how I work with a lot of people that will say, well, I'm not in health and well-being. I don't work in health. And they tell me what they do, and I can exactly tell them how they work in health. It might not be, like if you are a professor and you're working with a student and you're teaching the young students, the freshmen and sophomores, or the first-year students at a 2-year college, study skills and life skills, you 100% work in health and well-being, because those are setting life skills for that individual that will carry them forward. They just don't know how to articulate that. But I think as leaders, that's what really we're called to do in prevention, is to help people understand how all of the work that we do with college students, really almost anyone on campus, is promoting health and safety and growth for the college students that they work on. And it's not just this one person that works as the AOD prevention specialist that's doing that. It's really all of us, whether that's through our university mission or our own individual job descriptions or passions that we have.
So that's great, and that's a perfect transition again back to you, Joan. Other examples, other specific examples, whether it's for the statewide coalition, your partners in prevention, or your experience around the country with individual campuses or other state consortia or other national leaders. Any specific examples that you might want to share about leadership?
I think that something that we do in Missouri Partners in Prevention is with all of our campuses, we do a summer, what we call a site visit. And it just means we might not go to that campus, we might do it over Zoom, but we review our statewide data and their individual campus data results. We do a survey in our state through Missouri Partners in Prevention called the Missouri Assessment of Collegiate Health Behaviors. So for the past 2 days, I've been doing site visits on several campuses, and we've been able to make that data come to life for the campus, but also yesterday we had some fantastic partners at the college we were at from athletics and academic retention, and they were able to really see how the data spoke to them and the students that they worked on, and they were able to bring in different cultural pieces as well as experience that really made the data make sense to everyone in the room. And the campus that we were at this morning, there was about 25, 30 people that was from all over the 2-year school that we were at. And they were able to ask questions. They were able to understand that this was about the students they were working on and how they contributed to it. This particular campus actually had reminded everyone why they were there and gave them name tags that were color-coded based on the data they specifically wanted them to look at. And then they were going to get in data teams later that day and review the data some more. That is a great example of people really creating that culture of assessment around prevention and health promoting campuses. The other example I'll give is that in these competencies, like I said, we see examples of working across the aisle in academic affairs. We see partnering with folks in the faculty side, whether that be on student mentorship projects. We've had faculty that have worked with us as outside evaluators, faculty that have written articles with our data because we are a research to practice organization. We don't do a lot of individual publishing ourselves. We've had campus faculty who have led peer education groups because they're in the School of Social Work and that is their interest area, but really thinking about like those collaborative activities. And then lastly, a great example is that we all have been in the field for over 20 plus years. I've been in the field 23 years, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for folks like both of you who, when I was early in my career, it encouraged me and asked me questions and suggested that I go to a conference presentation or help me learn about the work that you were doing at George Mason or ASU. And I think we forget that if we don't do that with young people, if we don't show leadership, if we don't show interest in this work that we do and show young professionals, students, what prevention is, especially from an evidence-based point of view, we're not going to be able to turn our work that we have spent our lives doing over to anyone. And so for me, my passion really, like if I had to give away all of my jobs, I would want to only keep one thing, and that is mentoring young researchers, young prevention professionals, because it's so exciting to see prevention come alive for people that are going to they're going to be doing this work long after I'm gone and retired and living on a beach or something like that. So I think those are like the 3 examples that really stuck out to me as I was reading these competencies that that I just wanted to highlight.
Yeah, and just one of their examples was about working with the campus data, the statewide data and the campus data, and you work with the campus. And what I take from that is you're using Karen's word from earlier, I think, about tools, giving them data, and then they then go forth and help to shape, to help lead whatever their initiatives, the appropriate initiatives, the needs-based initiatives would be for their campus. Is that a fair?
Yes, because I mean, the two campuses, even that I have been at the last 2 days, one is a historically Black college or university in an urban area. The other is a rural 2-year school. There's distinct differences for those campuses.
Right.
Talk about different mission, different folks on campus, the community around those campuses is very different.
Yeah,
And so I think a prevention leader really has to think about not just the data, but how that data makes sense within the context that is that campus, within the leadership organization that is that the business, if you will, that is that campus.
Right.
And if they don't do that, it's just numbers on a page. It's like an accounting spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's a report, it's there, but you're trying to make it data that they can use, is what I'm hearing. Yeah. So Karen, to you, any other examples on the campus, in the state, nationally?
What I wanted to do is actually add on to something that
Sure.
Joan was talking about,
Sure.
and really this idea that each campus is unique.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons that we started visioning these competencies, because prevention in a college campus or university setting is unique. It's different than prevention within the context of a larger community or a state or
Right.
a region. It's really depends upon the environment that the campus presents, right? Who are the students? Who are the staff? Is it a 2 or 4 year? Is it a research? Is it private or public, etc.? And tying that back into leadership, that's really knowing your community. That's really knowing your campus. It's really knowing your role and being able then to take that information and bring along a group of people who also understand the campus from those perspectives, but maybe bring them along in this idea that prevention is part of the work that we're all challenged with doing, right? We're all responsible for. And, I really wanted to underscore that, but, add on to what Joan was saying, because she just brought up such important points about our role as leaders in this environment.
Yeah, that's very helpful. So here's a follow-on for both of you before we go to the last question. We talk about leadership. We're talking about trying to bring people along. What sort of insights can you offer about when they just don't want to come along, or they have their own predetermined mindset? It's like, I've been doing it this way for 20 years, or, I don't understand this prevention science stuff. I just want to do it the way I want to do it. I mean, I'm thinking of someone upstairs or some naysayer on a committee. I'm just thinking, whatever obstacles are out there for those who are trying to lead, what advice do you have, or what insights can you share about those sorts of challenges for people who are trying to lead, as both of you are talking?
I think that, and I think I've mentioned this in other competencies conversations that we've had, is that I have never successfully gotten anyone to partner just by inviting them to a meeting cold. I think it was Ellen Gold a very long time ago from Michigan. I was at a NIAAA meeting as a student, and she talked about these are problems that enroll every semester and never graduate, and we can't become complacent. But also, I'm also bringing back another mentor, Pat Fabiano, and talking about those 100 cups of coffee, right? Like, we build our relationships with people by asking them, what do you think about this? What do you think about what we're doing? What are your most significant problems in the work that you do in public safety? and listening to that answer, which is a very big thing. Oftentimes, the best leaders are the best listeners and get out of their own way. And so those leaders to be able to listen to the responses and then get to know that person and develop a win-win with them. Like maybe they're never going to get to the place where they're going to be completely bought in, but they are bought in on some things you're doing, or at least won't get in your way.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that, every conversation is different. There's, always challenges sometimes with folks that kind of live in their space of, I think of conduct professionals. I've never been a conduct professional, but I know it is just so draining and hard to both be an advocate, but then also want to see that student held accountable, but also succeed. And just listening to what that is for them. And if they're honest with you, you probably can get to the place where you can make some comparisons about the work that you're doing and they're doing, and you can move forward together.
Yeah.
Very helpful. Karen, some thoughts? I know it's a spontaneous question.
Can you repeat the question?
No,
Because I was so involved in Joan's response that.
Well, go for Joan's response. The question was about, the ideal talk we're doing about leadership, and then the naysayers are the obstacles.
Oh, right.
And that's where it was going. It was great. It was great.
Yeah.
And so it's mentoring examples too.
Well, one of the examples that I had thought of was when you're maybe an advisor to a student organization, or you're on a coalition, you're not the lead person, or, but it's maybe a community coalition or a task force where a lot of people, different disciplines, different departments and colleges are brought together, including students, right? And you understand prevention science and they want to do something, but they don't really know prevention science.
Right.
And how to sort of, it's like learning how to be a leader without usurping the leadership role of the person who is the assigned leader, right?
Yeah.
How to speak about prevention in a way that directs people to resources and knowledge bases. And I just really do want to go back to what Joan was saying about building relationships, because if you have nothing else in those types of situations, you have the potential to build relationships and to strike up allyships, right? For prevention, for people who maybe didn't know that much about prevention when the task force started, but you've been having some coffee with them, you've been talking to them about the data, maybe some of the things that someone like Allison Smith is doing at NYU, or Joan is doing with Partners in Prevention. And, you're starting to bring in examples of what's going on in the world in prevention, and people are learning that. And then I thought of one other example that was one of those moments in my career where I went like, whoa, we must be doing something right. Where we did have a task force that was called together by the president of the university to address substance use issues, right? And there are all these faculty and important people around the table with me, little me. And the conduct person was at the table, and some other people that I'd done quite a bit of committee meetings with and work groups with over time, right? And these faculty were just, digging into prevention literature and trying to, figure out what we need to do. And we're coming up with these ideas. And my partners were saying, no, we don't do that here at ASU because of, this or that theory that Karen Moses has told us about, or that we learned through our alcohol committee, or whatever, so it was like, I didn't really have to say anything because of the times that I had spent with these people already, and they had grown and, learned and grown and become allies for prevention. They're not the ones delivering the prevention programs per se, but they knew what was evidence-based and what wasn't, because they had had conversations and meetings and enough exposure that it came through. So that was like one of my best experiences as a leader in prevention at ASU.
Right. Yeah, and through the nurturing over time, they became genuine allies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So the last question is, there's all sorts of audiences, and we've talked about them. I mean, each of you have talked about faculty, we talked about peers, but there's a whole range of audiences on our campus. Do you have any messages about or to any of these audiences? There's higher risk groups, there's some traditional allies or potential allies, there's some non-traditional ones. As you think about leadership and any of these audiences or subgroups, any messages to or about any of them?
Sure. I would just suggest that whenever we're working with a group, subpopulation, whoever they are, that we shouldn't be planning for them, or we should be including them at every level possible, showing them data that is relevant to their group. These are the, this is the story the data tells about you as students. We should be taking into consideration the structures and the policies and the programs that are part and parcel of their student experience, not only from our lens or their staff, sponsor, advisor lens, but from their lens. What is it that they want? What is it that they hold dear? What is it that they hope for? What is it that they're afraid of? All of those questions and all of those opportunities for students to speak their truth and for us to listen and then use the information that they're giving us to plan accordingly with them, and then to let them help us implement, let them do the implementing. Like if there's a good plan and it's something they want for their students, and they can, we can give them the money or the resources or the support they need to make it happen, then it's gonna be a great opportunity for them to step in and create change within their own student community. And I would say that that's true for any group, whether it's fraternities, sororities, athletes, intramural sports participants, students from different race and ethnic groups. And, the gamut, age, traditional, family, whatever it is that unites that group of students is what's important to bring them together in the planning for.
Very good. And it sounds like, engaging them in helping create their own futures. And then would that also be true for potential allies or intermediaries?
I think so.
Yeah, it just resonates. It sounds to me.
Yeah, I like to bring together groups of students with and without their allies present or their sponsors present.
Good.
And also, have conversations with each party so that they can speak their truth openly, right? And then bring together the parties so that they can get exposed to those thoughts and ideas and start to share across the aisle with each other. I mean, there are other ways to do that, but that's my preferred way, is to, really allow as much openness in a first conversation, so that I have and my team have the best understanding possible as we venture forth into bringing this group together and doing something to improve their well-being.
Very, very good. Joan, same question. Any thinking about any particular audiences or groups, any messages to them or messages about them as we work with them?
I think what Karen said is so unbelievably important. So I just want to like put a big exclamation point on that. I would add that I think of all the competencies, this one is like very much for the prevention professional. These are all for the prevention professional, but this one really speaks to our power on campus and leveraging that power. But at the same time, we can't do that if there is blatant disrespect for science, for public health, for prevention. If we're seen as the people that just give out condoms, or the people that you go to for a flu clinic, or all of those things that are very, very important to public health, right? But they need to see us in that transformative role. And so some of that is on us, but some of that is on the bias of our colleagues. And so if there are folks that are watching or listening to this and you maybe partner with the prevention professional on campus, think about the fact that most of those folks, like Res Life, we usually have at least 4 or 5 other colleagues that are doing the same thing as us, and we have a chance to like bounce things off of each other. For those of us who work in substance misuse prevention, we're kind of on our own. We don't have a lot of other people that do the same work that we do. We might find natural colleagues like in violence prevention or mental health promotion, but on some small campuses, these are people who are on an island. So please do, reach out to those folks, show your support, and view them as the scientists, the folks that are implementing the evidence-based change, and give them that respect. And also, use what power you have to leverage some of the things that they're trying to get done to make a healthier and safer campus.
Yeah, just as we start to close, just building on that, also, I think there's a dovetail to what you said, Joan, and that's also, since you might be on an island, seek mentors. I mean, it may not be on your campus, but so while we've talked earlier about being mentors, it's also for that person who might feel alone, seek mentors, seek the support in a statewide coalition, seek support from someone you met at a conference or someone that you've read about. So seek that support. The other piece, just to highlight that none of us in this role are on an island, is when we built the 8 professional competencies, we built upon other literature that preceded us. And what we highlighted in this volume, and for each of the 8 areas, is resources. And within the resources, there's those that we think were more central, if you can only go to 2 or 3 or 4. And then we have others that we think are relevant and appropriate for the prevention professional and for their colleagues. So with that, I'm going to ask for any closing comments from either of you. Any closing comments about leadership and the, if you will, the prevention competencies? Karen.
Okay, these are my closing comments. Key to leadership competencies is seeing yourself as a leader in whatever space you're in, right?
Nice.
To have faith that you know prevention science, and that what you know is more than a lot of the other people around the table. So you can do this. You can be the leader, whether you're sitting at the front of the table or whether you're not. You can be a voice for prevention that takes into account these 10 different sub-competencies that are under the leadership competency.
Yeah, very nice, very empowering, very empowering. Thank you. Joan, any closing comments?
I think I would say to any prevention professional that's like starting this work is that it's often hard, but it's incredibly rewarding to see the benefits over time. And I think that absolutely seeking out mentorship, seeking out ways to lead we will only be as successful as we kind of allow ourselves to be. I think sometimes it's our own hangups that keep us from being like the leader that Karen mentioned. And so I think that I wish I could identify where all of the new prevention professionals in our field are coming from and be able to like give their graduation speech and talk to them about staying in the field, about that we need them to see themselves as the incredible change agents that they are. I see a lot of burnout because they're just in the rat race of educate, and not seeing any of that environmental change that really sustains the work that we do. And just stick with it, and I think give back to the field. It's similar to how we're all doing with these competencies webinars. Reinvest in kind of the garden that grew you a little bit. I think that's incredibly important.
Very nice. Those closing comments really pull it together for me, and I think for our viewing audience. So Joan, Karen, thank you for your insights. Thank you for sharing your wisdom of your decades of experience. I join you with decades of experience. But I thank you for all of the rich comments. And you did exactly what we wanted to do, is to bring to life this competency area. We have several pages in the guide with these 10 sub-competencies, but you brought it to life. Some real life examples and really helping the viewing audience make it happen on their campus, believe in themselves and move things forward, accomplishing, nudging towards that vision. And in closing, I want to thank the Mid-America PTTC for their support for the initial go around with this guide, with this publication, again, available at www.preventioncompetencies.org and on the DEA website. I want to thank Rich Lucy and your colleagues at the DEA for your support of this webinar series and for helping move forward with our college campuses and our nation as a whole with drug misuse prevention. And now the baton on leadership is passed to the viewing audience for you to carry it forward, to make your small pieces of success as we move forward with patience and with determination and with good grounding. So thank you for the difference that you're about to make for the lives of our college students and their futures. Thank you.